Today we're going to discuss the differentiation of public and private space, which is highlighted in our textbook in Chapter 6. So, what does it mean? Well, we can think about this in different ways, but the public and private spaces needs to be separate in order to keep the sanctity of both realms. What I mean by that is, like, for example, in the textbook it talks about your class. So a class is a shared public event. If you have the same class as your roommate, when you speak about topics in class, it's a public idea. You're, making conversations with everyone in your class, your professors, your teachers, and all that. However, when you move to your dorm room or your apartment, your private living space, then it turns into a private conversation. This turns private simply because you are no longer discussing it in a public setting. In that, you'll be able to gain trust and build a relationship. Now, keeping these realms separate helps to support and enhance one another. That's the whole idea of having a differentiation. You want them to be separate so they can support and help one another. And I'll get into that a little bit later. Now, things in your private life may permit you to do something in your public life. So for example, maybe you grew up and your mother was an engineer and you and her had a lot of discussions about engineering and robotics and all that stuff. Then in your public life, you may become an engineer, or maybe you might work with robotics. So a lot of the things that you do privately can then be shown publicly. The opposite is also true. Things that happen to you in the public may in turn assist you in the private realm as well. So the problem in here lies this. In this chapter, it talks a lot about the blurred lines in between the public and the private space. And it can actually cause quite a bit of problems. There should be differentiation, but as technology becomes more advanced, as we're able to connect with people faster and quicker, through like FaceTime and things like that, and social media, those lines are getting blurred, okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the public as a sacred place. Now, according to the text, the public space is to be protected. It's supposed to be honored and valued because there needs to be diversity and, it needs to be differentiated from the private arena. And our job is to keep the public domain safe for the differences. Out there, that you'll have a lot of different opinions, especially now with the presidential candidates and, the election coming up this year. You want to keep that public arena safe. Now, the book states that we should never feel 100% comfortable in the public realm. Because if you do, that means you're becoming complacent. That means you're not willing to learn. So if you get too comfortable, you don't learn. You have to learn to adapt, look at other people's opinions. It's supposed to be, a realm, I guess you'd say, of different ideas. So it forces you to learn. Now, in the book, it also states that we need to protect the public domain when we keep our own interests as secondary and the public space as primary. So worry more about the public space than we do ourselves. If we put others first, then we'll kind of fit right in, which is an interesting concept because that's something that you learn about as a kid, put others first, things like that. So it's interesting to actually hear it kind of put into words in a textbook, concerning communication ethics. So this leads me to the problem of social media and the intersection of public and private space. So the article and the movie clip that I ended up choosing illustrate why it's problematic when these two spaces collide. So Facebook and social media is a wonderful resource, but many people don't take into consideration that anything you put online can be seen and used forever. Even if you delete it, you can still find it. What you may think is private may not be. And there's also the problem with cyberbullying. Now, bullying, as we know, has been around for a very, very long time, much longer than social media. And social media has created a way for bullies to be around 24/7. Instead of just, leaving the problem at school or at work, cyberbullies can contact their victim online at any time, day or night. And many times before, not saying that it was necessarily the right thing, but many times before, if there was a conflict between two people, it was usually private. They kept it to themselves. Or maybe they, told a teacher or told a coworker or something like that, but it was a private thing. Now, the lines are being crossed. And bullying can be more of a public thing. So what I mean by that is with social media, and especially with the video clip we're about to watch, there's, the bullies can put things online and then it becomes a public thing. So it makes it almost worse. So in the video clip that we're going to be watching here in a moment, it's from the movie Cyberbully. It was on ABC Family a few years ago, 2011. And you see the public and the private lines getting crossed. And if we get a chance, hopefully we'll be able to see this part if it doesn't take too long. But near the end, the victim also, she makes a public statement online, almost pleading for help. So you can kind of see that, how the lines are being crossed here. All right, so let's go to that clip now.
Oh, she's crying. She must have seen the video. Everyone's seen it. 500 views last time I checked. You guys have all seen it, right? Isn't it hysterical? What video? Just wait till you're strong. I'm Taylor.
So as you can see, that private conversation between her and that girl, that private scrap or whatever happened, became very public with all of those girls in the girls' bathroom and then all over social media. So that's just showing how the lines are being crossed. Now, the bully, like I said, is taking away the public space and the sacredness of it. And she's becoming complacent. She's excluding people and creating an environment where she's refusing to learn about this girl. And there's no welcoming into the conversation. All right, so now we're going to look at my peer-reviewed article. Now, this article is really, really interesting. It was actually just a whole article about social media and if this university should get involved with their social media and, why there's been so much problems and things like that. So it was really neat, a lot of really good stuff, and there's going to be a link in my blog. You guys can check it out. But this article goes really great with the video clip. This article is about students' use of social media and the concerns of this university, like I was saying, in Australia. So social media has grown a lot over the past 10 years, like we all know, even like 10, 12 years now. And when the internet first started, it was very passive. You do your research and then you move on. You don't really interact. You just, you kind of just get your information. But now it's more interactive. You can make comments on posts. You can make comments on news articles. You can talk to people, on Skype and Facebook and all that stuff. And so it's more about self-promoting. So I want to share a quote, an exact quote from this article, which I thought was quite interesting. So it says, "The explosion in social networking sites such as MySpace, Facebook, Bebo, and Friendster is widely regarded as an exciting opportunity, especially for youth. Yet the public response tends to be one of puzzled dismay regarding a generation that supposedly has many friends, but little sense of privacy and a narcissistic fascination with self-display." I thought that was a fantastic quote and couldn't be more true. Now, I don't really necessarily see myself as narcissistic, but I do know that I tend to probably overshare. I just had a son and love him to death. He's the cutest little thing ever. And I know that I post pictures all the time. It's just one of those things. And I know now better that, Facebook is not necessarily private as we think it is. Yes, we do certain things as far as like, oversharing and sharing too much. But, you got to keep into consideration that it's not always going to be private. People can see things, even if it says private in your privacies, okay, in your privacy setting, I should say. So that's just something interesting to think about. And another thing that the article mentions is the whole idea of an online persona. Now, if you have this online persona, you are feeling a little bit more confident. you're not, you don't have that face-to-face contact, and you can say harsher things. Now, Facebook, as we know, is a stream of consciousness. Like people post whenever, whatever, whenever, right? Oh, I'm going to the mall, or oh, I'm doing this, or oh, I'm thinking about this. And so, we aren't really thinking about what we're saying, and our private thoughts are becoming public. So, and going back to the video, the movie clip, and we don't keep much privacy anymore, and it's hurting the public and private space. And the bully doesn't keep her hatred to herself. She spreads it all around, spreading it to other friends, spreading it to, her little group and Facebook and, social media. And then that in turn hurts the victim even further. So the whole main idea of this article was the fact that students were writing horrible things about the professors and other students on the Facebook page. And so the university wanted to, kind of attack this, but how can you? And yes, there's an element of privacy, but you never know who sees your post. So like a friend of a friend could see the post and, oh, they're saying bad things about you. And so you got to be careful of that. And so in conclusion, just want to recap everything. So this is a problem. Differentiating between public and private space is very important, but as you can see, we're not exactly doing a very good job of that. We need to be more aware of, putting our interests secondary and then the public space primary, and that's going to make everything a bit more balanced. Like I said before, I definitely overshare with my son, and it's just something that, that I do, that a lot of us do. We share a lot of different things that maybe, maybe we shouldn't. So I want to leave you with this quote that's from the book, on page 113. It's actually a quote within the book from someone else. His name is David Zarefsky, and he says, "The goal of communication study is understanding what it means to be an articulate person, one who is able to participate effectively in relationships with messages and people, whether in the intimacy of private dialogue or in the deliberations of the public forum." So ideally, in the end, we want to be able to do both. Communicate privately, communicate publicly, but there needs to be a clear line, which as of right now with social media is not exactly clear. So here are my citations. I use the book, I use the video, and then I use the article, which I will post a link in my blog. Hope you enjoyed chapter 6, and we'll see you soon.